Exposing yourself to early morning sunlight within the first 30 to 60 minutes of waking is one of the most powerful yet overlooked behaviors for transforming your mental and physical health. This habit might seem simple, even trivial, but its impact on your brain chemistry, sleep quality, mood regulation, and overall cognitive function is profound and grounded in decades of neuroscience and chronobiology research. When sunlight enters your eyes, specifically natural light that contains a broad spectrum of wavelengths, it activates specialized neurons in the retina known as intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells. These cells are not involved in vision, but instead send a direct signal to the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the SCN of the hypothalamus, often referred to as the body's master clock. This signal does more than just tell time. It literally resets your circadian rhythm, the internal biological timer that regulates your sleep, wake cycle, hormone production, metabolism, and body temperature across a 24-hour period. Getting sunlight early in the day anchors your circadian rhythm so that you feel more alert in the morning and naturally get sleepy in the evening. This practice leads to a cascade of hormonal and neurochemical changes that optimize your alertness, focus, and emotional stability. Cortisol, often misunderstood as a stress hormone, actually plays a critical role here. In the early part of the day, sunlight triggers a healthy, controlled rise in cortisol, which acts as a wake-up signal to the body. Unlike the chronic stress-induced cortisol spikes we often hear about, this morning cortisol pulse is part of what helps you feel energized and ready to engage with the world. At the same time, exposure to bright light also stimulates dopamine release in brain areas associated with motivation, drive, and mood regulation, such as the striatum. This early morning dopamine elevation sets the tone for your mood and cognitive performance throughout the rest of the day. It promotes a state of wakefulness and readiness, what neuroscientists often describe as heightened task salience, meaning you're more likely to stay focused on what matters rather than be hijacked by distractions. Failing to get this natural light exposure first thing in the morning causes your circadian system to drift. Artificial indoor lighting, even from bright screens, is often 10 to 100 times less powerful in terms of lux, a measure of light intensity compared to sunlight. This insufficient signal to the brain can lead to a delayed circadian rhythm, making it harder to fall asleep at night and more difficult to wake up feeling refreshed. Over time, this misalignment can contribute to mood disorders, cognitive fatigue, impaired immune function, and even metabolic dysregulation. Moreover, morning light exposure has been shown to increase serotonin levels, which are not only important for mood, but also serve as a precursor for melatonin, the hormone that regulates sleep. This means the light you get in the morning has a direct impact on how well you sleep that night. In effect, your sleep tonight begins with your light exposure this morning. There's a feedback loop between the retina, the hypothalamus, and the pineal gland that translates light into chemical signals that govern not just wakefulness, but your entire 24-hour physiological cycle. This habit is also remarkably accessible and cost-free. It doesn't require supplements, complicated routines, or expensive equipment. All it requires is 5 to 10 minutes of exposure to outdoor sunlight within the first hour of waking. On cloudy days, this might need to be extended to 20 or 30 minutes, but the signal still gets through. It's important not to wear sunglasses during this time, although normal eyeglasses or contact lenses are fine, since you want the unfiltered light to reach those light-sensitive cells in the retina. Implementing this one habit can have a compounding effect. Over the span of a few weeks, people often report improved mood, greater energy throughout the day, reduced reliance on caffeine, easier transitions to sleep at night, and even a more stable emotional outlook. It also creates a natural anchor point for your day, an act of intentionality that sets the tone for behavior that follows. In the context of behavior change, this kind of biological alignment is what gives new habits staying power. It's not about forcing discipline on a resistant system. It's about using the system's own wiring to support your goals. When you give your brain and body the inputs they evolved to expect, like early sunlight, your biology does the rest. And once this rhythm is established, everything from your productivity to your sense of well-being begins to shift in the right direction. This is not just habit stacking. It's neurobiological alignment, and it starts with a simple, powerful act: step outside and let the light in. Deliberate cold exposure though often viewed as uncomfortable or extreme, is one of the most powerful tools available for enhancing mental resilience, elevating mood, and optimizing focus through direct, measurable changes in neurochemistry and physiology. This practice, when done safely and consistently, taps into the body's ancient adaptive systems, creating a ripple effect of biological benefits that can transform how you respond to stress, how you feel throughout the day, and how efficiently your brain and body operate. When you immerse yourself in cold water or take a cold shower, your body is rapidly exposed to a physiological stressor. In that moment, your heart rate increases, breathing becomes shallow, and your sympathetic nervous system, the system responsible for fight or flight, activates. This is not dangerous if done in a controlled and brief manner. In fact, this stress response is precisely what initiates the benefits. Your body begins releasing a surge of neurochemicals, including norepinephrine and dopamine. Norepinephrine helps heighten alertness and sharpen attention. Dopamine, often referred to as the motivation molecule, increases significantly, sometimes by over 250%, and this elevation can remain for hours after the exposure. This chemical cocktail contributes to improved mood, enhanced energy, and a greater sense of drive. Many people who engage in regular cold exposure report feeling more mentally sharp and emotionally stable, even in the face of external stressors. The mechanism behind this lies in what is known as hormetic stress, the concept that small doses of stress can make you stronger, both physically and mentally. Cold exposure trains your nervous system to handle discomfort and challenge without overreacting. It builds what neuroscientists call stress inoculation, a form of neural adaptation that makes future stressors easier to handle. Over time, your stress threshold expands. You don't just tolerate more, you thrive under pressure. In addition to its effects on the brain, cold exposure influences metabolism and inflammation. The sudden drop in temperature activates brown adipose tissue, a type of fat that burns energy to generate heat. This metabolic activation can contribute to improved glucose regulation and fat oxidation. It also triggers a mild inflammatory response that, paradoxically, results in an overall anti-inflammatory effect over time. That's why cold therapy has gained popularity in recovery routines among athletes and high performers. But even beyond elite performance, this practice can benefit the average person by reducing brain fog, improving mental clarity, and enhancing immune resilience. Perhaps one of the most transformative effects of cold exposure is how it reshapes your relationship to discomfort. In the modern world, most of us are overprotected from environmental challenges. Climate control, constant access to food, and digital stimulation have removed many of the natural stressors that our biology evolved to respond to. Cold exposure reintroduces one of these fundamental challenges in a controlled way. It's not just about getting through the discomfort. It's about learning how to breathe through it, to observe the response, and not let the mind panic. This is an act of neuroplasticity in real time. Each time you choose to enter the cold, you're teaching your brain that voluntary discomfort is not only survivable, it is beneficial. This practice builds discipline, enhances willpower, and reinforces the neural pathways associated with courage and persistence. It's also important to note that cold exposure is not about suffering for its own sake. The exposure only needs to last long enough to trigger the physiological response, typically 1 to 5 minutes. There's no added benefit to extreme durations that cause numbness or risk. What matters more is consistency. Engaging in cold exposure 2 to 4 times per week is enough to generate lasting benefits. And because the effects on dopamine are so potent and long-lasting, this habit can significantly improve baseline motivation and reduce dependence on external stimulants like caffeine or sugar. Cold exposure can take different forms depending on your access and tolerance. Ice baths, cold plunges, cold showers, or even swimming in natural cold bodies of water are all valid. The key is that the water needs to feel uncomfortably cold initially, but remain safe. You should always be able to control your breathing within the first 30 seconds. That moment where your body wants to react and your mind chooses calm is where the growth happens. Incorporating deliberate cold exposure into your daily or weekly routine is a profound act of self-regulation. It's more than just a biohack. It's a practice that aligns with how your nervous system is built to operate through challenge, adaptation, and resilience. In just a few weeks, you may find that things that once felt overwhelming become manageable that your mood stabilizes naturally, and that your focus sharpens without the need for constant stimulation. Cold becomes a teacher, and what it teaches is strength. Engaging in 90-minute sessions of deep, focused work each day is one of the most scientifically grounded methods for enhancing cognitive performance, building discipline, and creating long-term structural changes in the brain. This isn't just about getting more done. It's about training the brain to enter a high-functioning mental state where productivity, creativity, and concentration are amplified. These sessions leverage the brain's natural capacity for neuroplasticity, which is the ability of neural circuits to change in response to experience. When you eliminate distractions and direct your attention with intensity and precision, you're not only performing tasks, you're reshaping the brain to become more efficient and powerful over time. The prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain responsible for decision-making, planning, and focus, is activated when you engage in deep work. It thrives on goal-directed activity and functions best when distractions are minimized. However, in the modern environment, the brain is constantly bombarded by emails, notifications, messages, and other forms of digital noise that hijack attention. Each time you switch tasks, your brain pays a price. You lose momentum, and it takes time to refocus. This constant switching can lead to cognitive fatigue and weakens the neural pathways associated with sustained attention. Creating a daily 90-minute block of deep work counters this by giving the brain a chance to operate in what is known as a flow state. This is a condition characterized by complete immersion in a task where time seems to disappear and performance peaks. Achieving flow is not random. It is the result of setting clear goals, eliminating distractions, and working on something that is challenging but manageable. During flow, the brain releases a cocktail of neurochemicals, including dopamine, norepinephrine, endorphins, and anandamide, all of which enhance learning, creativity, and emotional regulation. These chemicals make the experience of deep work not only productive, but intrinsically rewarding. The 90-minute duration is not arbitrary. It aligns with one of the brain's natural cycles known as an ultradian rhythm. These are biological periods lasting about 90 to 120 minutes, during which the brain can focus intensely before needing rest. By structuring your deep work sessions to align with this rhythm, you work with your biology rather than against it. After this window, the brain requires a period of rest or transition to maintain high performance over time. That's why trying to force 8 hours of uninterrupted focus is often counterproductive. It's better to have 1 or 2 blocks of high-quality, undistracted work than an entire day of fragmented attention. The key to deep work is not just about intensity, it's about intentionality. Before each session, you should define exactly what you are going to work on and eliminate all sources of distraction. This means turning off notifications, closing irrelevant tabs, and letting others know you are unavailable. It also involves preparing your brain by entering the session with a clear mental and emotional state. Some people find it helpful to begin with a brief mindfulness exercise or a short walk to reset and signal the transition into focused effort. Over time, the benefits of deep work compound. You begin to think more clearly, solve problems more efficiently, and retain information more effectively. This practice also builds metacognition, the ability to think about your thinking. You become more aware of when your attention drifts and more skilled at bringing it back. This self-awareness is a critical skill in every domain of life, from learning to leadership. Moreover, the discipline of engaging in daily deep work trains the neural circuits related to persistence and delayed gratification. It teaches the brain to stay with a task even when it becomes difficult or uncomfortable. This is a fundamental skill for success in any endeavor, whether academic, professional, or personal. It rewires the brain to choose long-term goals over short-term distractions, strengthening your cognitive control and emotional regulation. Deep work is not about working harder, it's about working smarter. It's not about being busy, it's about being effective. In a world that celebrates multitasking and constant availability, choosing to go deep is a radical act of cognitive self-care and strategic growth. The brain responds to how it is used. If you train it for depth, it will deliver clarity, innovation, and resilience. And with just 90 minutes a day, you begin to unlock your highest cognitive potential, one focus session at a time. Incorporating daily physical movement into your routine is one of the most reliable ways to improve not only your physical health, but also your mental clarity, emotional stability, and long-term cognitive function. This doesn't necessarily mean you need to engage in strenuous workouts or spend hours at the gym. What's essential is that you move your body in a deliberate, consistent manner every single day. The benefits of daily movement extend far beyond muscular strength or cardiovascular endurance. They reach deep into the biology of the brain, influencing everything from memory and learning to mood and motivation. When you move your body, even through simple activities like walking, stretching, or light aerobic exercise, you stimulate the release of a powerful molecule called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. BDNF acts like a fertilizer for your brain. It supports the growth and survival of neurons, promotes the formation of new synapses, and enhances neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself based on experience. This means that regular movement doesn't just maintain your current brain function, it improves it over time. You literally become smarter and more mentally agile through consistent physical activity. Movement also plays a vital role in regulating your emotional state. When you engage in exercise, your body releases a cascade of neurochemicals, including endorphins, dopamine, and serotonin. These are the same chemicals involved in mood regulation, and they are naturally produced in response to physical activity. This is why even a short walk can help relieve stress, reduce symptoms of anxiety, and elevate mood. Regular movement essentially becomes a built-in antidepressant and mood stabilizer with none of the side effects and with cumulative benefits over time. Another critical aspect of daily movement is its role in energy management and circadian rhythm regulation. Physical activity, especially when done earlier in the day, helps increase core body temperature and signals to your brain that it's time to be awake and alert. This aligns your internal body clock with your external environment, which in turn helps improve sleep quality, mental focus during the day, and hormonal balance. People who move regularly tend to fall asleep faster, experience deeper sleep, and wake up feeling more refreshed. In terms of attention and learning, movement acts as a cognitive enhancer. Research shows that exercise increases blood flow to the brain, delivering more oxygen and nutrients that support mental performance. It also helps regulate insulin sensitivity and inflammation, two factors that, when unmanaged, can negatively affect brain function. Children and adults who exercise regularly show better executive function, improved memory, faster processing speed, and greater attentional control. These are not just transient effects. When movement becomes a daily habit, it creates structural and functional improvements in the brain that can last a lifetime. Movement also supports the body's detoxification and immune function systems. When you move, lymphatic flow increases, helping to clear metabolic waste from your tissues. This is especially important in a sedentary lifestyle where lymphatic drainage and circulation can become sluggish. Physical activity also supports cardiovascular health, which is directly tied to brain health. The brain consumes a significant portion of the body's blood supply, and a healthy vascular system ensures that the brain receives the oxygen and nutrients it needs to function optimally. Perhaps one of the most transformative aspects of daily movement is how it influences behavior and discipline. When you choose to move, even when you don't feel like it, you are reinforcing neural circuits of agency, resilience, and self-regulation. You teach your brain that you are in control of your behavior and that consistent effort matters more than motivation. This becomes a powerful feedback loop. The more you move, the better you feel. The better you feel, the more likely you are to engage in other beneficial behaviors, such as eating well, focusing deeply, and managing stress effectively. Importantly, movement should be sustainable and enjoyable. The goal is not intensity for the sake of punishment, but consistency for the sake of transformation. Even 20 to 30 minutes of walking, yoga, cycling, or bodyweight exercises each day can yield profound results. What matters most is that the activity is regular, mindful, and purposeful. When movement becomes part of your identity, something you do not to burn calories, but to build your brain and align your biology, you tap into one of the most powerful, low-cost, high-impact tools for lifelong health and cognitive excellence. Non-sleep deep rest, or NSDR, is a scientifically supported practice that allows the brain and body to enter a deeply restorative state without actual sleep. This practice includes techniques like yoga nidra, guided relaxation, and specific forms of deep breathing or body scanning. While NSDR might sound like something niche or spiritual, it is rooted in neuroscience and physiology. It provides a deliberate method to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, reduce stress, consolidate learning, and recharge mental energy. In our fast-paced, hyperstimulated world, this tool is not just beneficial, it is essential. During the day, your brain is constantly in a state of alertness, processing stimuli, making decisions, managing emotions, and regulating physical systems. This constant activity burns energy and accumulates what neuroscientists call sleep pressure, a biological drive for rest and recovery. However, most people only address this need at night through sleep, often ignoring the reality that short periods of rest during the day can dramatically improve performance, mood, and overall well-being. NSDR offers a way to reduce this cognitive load, reset the nervous system, and even improve the quality of your nighttime sleep. When you practice NSDR, your brain enters a state similar to early stages of sleep, specifically the theta and delta wave states associated with deep relaxation and learning consolidation. In these states, the brain becomes highly receptive to internal feedback, heart rate slows, breathing deepens, and stress hormones like cortisol decrease. Meanwhile, dopamine and serotonin levels tend to rise, creating a sense of calm, clarity, and emotional balance. Unlike passive resting, NSDR is an active engagement in intentional relaxation, which leads to greater recovery benefits compared to simply zoning out or scrolling through your phone. One of the most powerful uses of NSDR is in its effect on learning and memory. Studies have shown that short sessions of NSDR, after a period of focused work, can help solidify the information you've just learned. This is because memory consolidation is not limited to nighttime sleep. It also happens during wakeful rest. When you give the brain a chance to pause, it sorts, integrates, and strengthens neural connections related to recent experiences. This makes NSDR a powerful tool not just for relaxation, but for enhancing cognitive efficiency and performance. NSDR is also a tool for emotional regulation. By activating the parasympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system, often referred to as the rest and digest system, you bring the body out of a chronic stress state. Most people today live in near constant sympathetic activation, elevated heart rate, shallow breathing, racing thoughts. This is not sustainable and contributes to anxiety, fatigue, poor digestion, and decreased immune function. NSDR reverses this process. In just 10 to 20 minutes, it signals to the body that it is safe, that it can shift into repair mode, digest nutrients more effectively, restore hormonal balance, and calm overactive neural circuits. This practice is especially important for those who perform high, cognitive, or emotionally demanding work. The brain, like any high-performance organ, needs downtime to recover. NSDR acts as a pit stop. It doesn't take the place of sleep, but it can significantly supplement it, especially on days when stress is high or when you haven't slept well the night before. Some people also use NSDR protocols in the afternoon as an alternative to caffeine, reporting increased alertness, focus, and mood afterward, without the crash or disruption to sleep that stimulants can cause. Implementing NSDR is simple and requires no special equipment. You can lie down or recline in a quiet space, close your eyes, and follow a guided protocol or audio. Even without audio, simply performing body scans, diaphragmatic breathing, or visualization can place the brain into a similar restorative state. What matters is the intention to disengage from external stimuli and allow your mind and body to deeply rest. Incorporating NSDR into your daily routine doesn't require much time. Just one session of 10 to 20 minutes a day can produce noticeable benefits within days and profound cumulative effects over weeks. It can be practiced during a lunch break, after intense work, or even as a pre-sleep ritual. Over time, this habit trains the nervous system to shift more easily between arousal and relaxation, making you more adaptable and resilient in every aspect of life. NSDR is not a luxury or a bonus. It is a powerful reset button that allows the brain and body to perform at their best day after day. Consistency over intensity is a principle grounded in neuroscience, behavioral psychology, and long-term performance science. While modern culture often glorifies extreme effort, all-nighters, and intense short-term pushes, the brain and body are biologically wired to thrive on regular, repeated behaviors rather than sporadic bursts of intensity. Lasting change in any area, whether physical health, cognitive function, emotional regulation, or productivity, is the result of gradual, repeated signals to the nervous system. This is how neuroplasticity works. The brain doesn't respond most strongly to how hard something is, it responds to how often it is experienced. When you perform a behavior repeatedly, it activates and strengthens the neural circuits responsible for that behavior. Over time, these pathways become more efficient and automatic. This process, myelination, insulates the neural connections, making the behavior faster, easier, and more ingrained. But this only happens when the stimulus is consistent. A single intense workout may leave you sore, but it doesn't rewire your metabolism. A one-time burst of focus might feel productive, but it doesn't train your prefrontal cortex for sustained attention. Real transformation comes from doing a small, specific behavior every day, even when motivation is low and the results are not yet visible. Consistency also reduces the mental load of decision-making. When you commit to a daily habit, it shifts from a negotiable task to a non-negotiable part of your identity. This frees up cognitive energy, lowers friction, and makes the habit easier to maintain over time. For example, deciding whether to work out each day becomes unnecessary when it's simply what you do every morning, regardless of mood or schedule. This kind of automaticity is essential because motivation is inherently variable. Willpower is finite. But when a behavior is ingrained through consistency, it no longer depends on motivation. It becomes part of your operating system. From a neurochemical perspective, regularity also stabilizes dopamine pathways. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter linked to motivation and reward, functions best when it operates on a predictable rhythm. When habits are consistent, dopamine spikes are more balanced and sustainable. In contrast, intense, irregular efforts often create large dopamine surges followed by steep crashes, which can lead to burnout, emotional dysregulation, and decreased motivation over time. That's why people who rely on intensity often cycle through boom and bust phases, starting strong, crashing hard, and struggling to restart. Another crucial benefit of consistency is the accumulation effect. Small, repeated actions compound over time. This is a biological reality, not just a motivational slogan. 10 minutes of mindfulness a day reshapes your amygdala, the center of fear and emotion. 20 minutes of reading daily builds vocabulary and comprehension far more effectively than cramming. Daily sunlight exposure calibrates your circadian rhythm better than a single long hike. Each action might feel minor in the moment, but each repetition is a vote for the kind of person you're becoming, and your brain is counting those votes biologically and chemically. This principle applies equally to breaking negative habits. Inconsistent efforts to quit a behavior rarely work because the neural circuits associated with that behavior remain intact. But each day you avoid a trigger or replace a harmful action with a healthier one, you weaken the old neural pathways and strengthen new ones. This rewiring doesn't happen in a single moment of inspiration. It happens through daily, intentional action. Importantly, the consistency over intensity principle also helps prevent injury, fatigue, and burnout, physically and mentally. The body and brain adapt best when changes are incremental and sustainable. Intensity, when overused, activates the stress response system too aggressively, leading to cortisol dysregulation, impaired recovery, and eventual breakdown. In contrast, consistent behaviors regulate your autonomic nervous system, promote recovery, and keep energy levels balanced. Sustainable success is built on systems, not heroic effort. A reliable morning routine, a structured deep work block, a walk after lunch, or a wind-down ritual before sleep. These are not dramatic, but they are powerful. Because what you do every day, even in small amounts, shapes your biology, your brain, and your identity far more than what you do occasionally with maximum effort. In the end, excellence is not about intensity. It's about showing up day after day with intention and repetition. That's how change happens. That's how the brain learns. That's how a new life begins. One consistent step at a time.